What's up, my Cracker Tugas? Joseph Rothschild here, aka MBT, and we're doing this again. Spoiler season. It's just free content central. It's been a week since the last one of these I uploaded, and in that time, a whole bunch of new cards have come out for Firestorm, so, I mean, we're going to talk about them, right? We have to talk about the new cards for Firestorm. Also, like, really important to note here, I'm filming this on Tuesday the 11th, so if a bunch of cards have come out since then that completely upend the metagame, then I mean, well, what do you want me to do, right? Last time I did a big intro about like macro stuff. I will do just one really short thing before we get into today's. I am taken aback by how good these cards are. In Moonrise, there were like a handful of cards where I was like, oh, that is really strong. That's going to see pretty consistent experimentation throughout the metagame. This one, I'm like having trouble finding cards that I don't think have a home. So last time we took a look at Keon, the only card that we had was Urskote, and Urskote was Brummelinx. It was just straight up Brummelinx, right? It locked back row. Didn't really give any indication as to what they would want us to do with Frost Spirits. That has since changed. It turns out they expect you to play a deck that I am lovingly calling Blizzard Control. First up, we've got Champ Brummelinx. This is when you cast this Brummelinx, you can search your deck for a Mountains of Boreas or a Blizzard and add it to your hand. Card's already awesome. It's competitive with Jolton in terms of a stat line. Mountains of Boreas and Frost Spirits are really nice together. You know, Frigicub Nexusing is something that people were already trying in Frost decks to pretty low degrees of success, but this really makes it a whole lot easier. Being able to cast something in the same spirit is a huge difference compared to something like Jolton. Speaking of Frigicub, Frigicub says you can return a Blizzard from your underworld to your hand. This is not a champ Frigicub, so I believe you're just going to have to roll with it. And Shivaror, the Frigicub Ascension, says you can expend a Frost in order to special cast a Frigicub with your underworld with a Frost, and then when you cast Blizzard, you can target and destroy an Elestral. Brummelinx is kind of like Fawnlet in that it can search either one specific card, or if you already have it, one different card. The card I think you're actually going to be searching, despite the utility of Mountains of Boreas in these Frost decks, is going to be Blizzard. And the way you're going to do it is you're going to go like Brummelinx, Blizzard a back row. You can cast Frigicub, add back the Blizzard, Blizzard a back row, Shivaror, special cast the Frigicub, Blizzard a third time. Like, you will never have to fear back row if you are playing this deck. Even if your opponent does land more back row than you have Blizzards for, Urskote does a really good job of locking down the remaining ones, as does not Champ Brummelinx, but God knows if that's going to be played in a deck like this. This is cool. This is really great, and really cuts against some of the really frustrating things that Frost had to compete with, which is you would like load up a Frigicub with like 7 spirits and try and get in for a ton, but then your opponent could just like Shield of Achilles you and blow out your back walls. This prevents that from happening in 2 ways. One is that they're not going to have back row, and 2 is that you have a Frigicub that you have to play that isn't the one that Nexus is. So I don't know. These cards are cool. The start of an archetype focused around resolving Blizzard. We'll see how good it is. Last couple Keon cards, we have Narpoon, Champion of Keon, who can Nexus a Water or a Frost, and when it receives a Frost, you can special send it into Waylance. It's kind of annoying because, like, obviously you're casting with water, so it's not negated. But not difficult to achieve because you're going to probably be playing a Mountains of Boreas, searchable off of a Brummelinx, so you'll always have targets. And then Waylance deals Piercing. It's a 7/5, and when it declares an attack, you can Nexus 4 Frosts from any number of cards on your field to it. So this is meant to be like the replacement for the heavy-hitting Frigicub in this deck, and I think it's pretty good. Like, the goal here is you're going to use your other Elestrals in order to get your opponent to a position where they can't land any back row, or they're facing down like a Blizzard in hand with an empty back row and they don't want to set one. So then you like Blizzard the last one, you Narpoon, eat a Frost off a guy, special send into Waylance. Waylance eats the entire board and then hits for 1 trillion. That's really good, but also does have weaknesses. It puts you at a really huge disadvantage against like resting, unless you leave a second guy up. It puts you at a huge disadvantage versus spot removal. You're spending a lot of spirits on the Blizzards, which means the Waylance is going to hit for a lot after you've taken like 10, and if your opponent outs it, then you're SOL. If you're just going to invest a bunch of spirits into a big power play, why not play something like Blizztrix, which has a lot more attack? Theoretically, you can switch this Elestral to defense position with something like an Altar or an Addy, and then you could just attack it with any number of critters. Next, let's go to the new cows. So cows are already pretty good. I was super excited to see if the cows were going to get new cow support, and unfortunately with a lot of these, it's like getting a new card in archetype is kind of bad because it totally transforms like how the archetype plays, period. So let's talk about the cast. Soul Bell. When the Soul Bell is foretold with your Apollo's effect, you can special cast it with 1 Soul Stocks. When you cast the Soul Stocks, you can search your deck for a Soul Bell and put it on top of your deck. You can expend a Solar in order to return a Divine Rune to its owner's hand. Exaltus. When an Elestral on your field is destroyed in battle, you can special cast this Exaltus from your hand with Solar, and it gets +3 if you have foretold this turn. Finally, Cop Plucky. When you normal cast this Plucky, you can search your deck for a Lyre of Apollo, add it to your hand. When you cast a rune with Solar, you can return a Solar from your Underworld to your Spirit deck. And Lyre of Apollo just gives a swap to the Empowered Elestral. All your champions of Apollo get +2/+2. So what's going on here? Soul Bell is a card that I had hoped we would just straight up see in the first wave of Apollo stuff. Like, this is a Daybreak card that has somehow been delayed. It missed its train. It's, 2 sets too late. That said, it's really strong. You know what it reminds me of, actually, is like Manaless Dredge decks in Magic, where, like, they will just cheat guys out of the top of the deck, like Icarid and the like. Narcomoeba. Here, you are doing it so you can get a quick ascension into Soul Stocks, which can then allow the next Foretell to be profitable as well by putting a Soul Bell on top, or more realistically, something like Dragulus. Being able to cheat out a guy in Solar is really, really strong. And finally, Exaltus, I think, is really good. Just being able to kind of gores his way onto the field is going to really fuck up combat math for a lot of people. All of these cards, of course, will be a little telegraphed because you're probably finding them off of Apollo, which is sick. I like Lyre as well, but I don't love it. I don't think it's enough to warrant playing it and Plucky, but it is an artifact, which matters for reasons we will get to in a little bit. Folks, they called me crazy for saying that Suppress Control was real, but lo and behold, they have printed 2 or 3 cards that just read, Joseph, it's time for Suppress Control. First up is Champion of Artemis Werepuff. You can special send this into a Like a Void from your hand or deck if your opponent has 2 suppressed cards. When a Werepuff is destroyed in battle, you can suppress a card on your opponent's field until the next turn. Like a Void says when you cast this Like a Void, you can special cast any number of Werepuff from your deck with Lunar suppressed. Then you can destroy a suppressed Elestral on your field to destroy a suppressed Elestral on an opponent's field. Spectaris, who can be special cast from your hand with a Lunar if your opponent has at least 1 suppressed card. Pandolence, which, if an Elestral becomes suppressed, or when a player plays an Elestral that is suppressed, an opponent must expend 1. So I don't really love that last one. It's like a Toxion style finisher for the deck, but these cards are really cool. Unfortunately, they are going to suffer from one major problem, which is there is not a really good way to suppress more than 1 guy of your opponents. Artemis is good. It negates the effects of a guy for like an entire turn cycle, but Artemis is actually 1 card. In order to get the Special Ascension effect on the Werepup, you're going to have to either walk the Werepup in and then cast a second one, or unfortunately rely on the most effective mechanism for AoE suppression, which is Dense Fog. I don't love Dense Fog. It is really rough being like, no matter how searchable you make Dense Fog with cards like Night Venom and Toxiri, no matter how effective you make multiple copies by letting you trade it for removal spells with the aforementioned monsters, you are still occasionally going to play against a person who Lunar casts their Elestrals, and it totally changes the outcome of your deck, its potential, and what it's able to do. So I will need to see another card that suppresses before I feel great about these, but if I do, I mean, these look fantastic. Special cast any number of Werepup? Are you kidding me? This hits for like 12. And if you're like, oh, it doesn't hit for 12, you have to get over your opponent's monsters. No, you don't, because of the way Like a Void works. I think it's crazy good. I think it's really strong. And well at home in a shell of critters that are already decent. I mean, you watched Brewlock do okay with those cards a couple of weeks back. Let's talk about the Demeters. We have a Verdolith Champ of Demeter. This is weird. I didn't really expect the Liths to get additional forms, but sure, whatever. Can be normal cast with 2 Earth Spirits if your Demeter is enchanted. When you target this Verdolith with Demeter's effect, you can special cast a 1 Spirit Elestral from your hand, and this effect can be activated once per turn. New Viscerus still gets +1 for every Viscerus on the field. While there is another Viscerus on the field, this Viscerus is unaffected by your opponent's counter runes. Panzer, when you cast this Panzer, you can enchant a number of Earth to this Panzer up to the number of Elestrals on an opponent's field. When this Panzer is destroyed in battle, you can draw a card for each enchanting spirit on it. Don't love these cards. Even though Pandacene is like sort of Ambrosia, you can see that the dynamic of these is meant to be I'm going to leave a Demeter on my field way over enchanted so that all of my cards are on. This is really scary in a format where everyone is going to be trying to pop a Divine Rune. I think you're going to see a lot of people playing a lot of cards that they wouldn't be playing otherwise because they have the utility to pop a Divine Rune on your opponent's turn. Significant amount of stuff that does it, including like P-Gust Nexuses, and I think you're going to have to be really scared of it because not only is that going to turn off all your critters, it is also going to like just totally kill you in terms of a spirit differential. I do want to say I think this Viscerus is pretty interesting. It's like the Gale the Whirlwind to Viscerus's Shora. Like instead of getting the other Viscerus off of Viscerus, you can get this Viscerus off of Viscerus, and then like he has utility, like he can attack really well. Like that's cool, right? And I want to say this Panzer is also like kind of a ticking time bomb. I'm excited to see like a scenario where someone like brews Turbo Fog and their opponent gets way ahead and they're like, okay, I'll Panzer for 7, draw 7. I don't think there's like a payoff to that yet, but maybe someday. All right, let's talk about the stuff I'm the most excited about from this recent drop, and that's the Champion of Hephaestus cards. So the theory of these cards is that they're going to make artifacts good. Artifacts, if you're unfamiliar, are similar to equip spells in Yu-Gi-Oh! In 2 ways. Firstly, you know, they attach to a guy, and give them usually a stat buff. And secondly, they suck ass. It's going to take a lot to get artifacts to be good, but if they are good, there's a lot of potential there because aside from being static buffs on your guys, they are also a spirit sink. So any Elestral that likes to Nexus, like Equilinx or Kindleo, is going to love playing with these cards. Here's a bunch in the exact same spirit as Kindleo. Begin with Valkyrie's Champion of Hephaestus. When you cast this Valkyries, you can search your deck for a Hephaestus and add it to your hand. That's crazy. When Hephaestus is enchanted, you can use fire from your underworld to pay for artifact runes. So this is like the best card in the history of time. I don't really know how to explain to you how good this card is. The concept is, on cast, you can search a Hephaestus. Hephaestus can spend some fire spirits to search for a powerful artifact. Then you can immediately cash in that artifact using the fire spirits you just spent. You get to develop like 5 spirits on your board, and you can get any artifact you want because it's functionally free, suiting up a Valkyris immediately. If you have a Kindleo in hand, you can also just chill for a turn and wait. I mean, this is so strong. Made stronger by the following cards. Rumacol, when cast, can return an artifact rune from your underworld to your hand and gets +1 for each enchanted artifact rune on the field. And Scavicol, which can special ascend from your Fire Elestral if you have 2 enchanted artifact runes on your field. Hard but not impossible. Artifacts that were empowering that Elestral start empowering this Scavicol instead of being sent to the underworld. So it kind of eats the... we do have some new artifacts. Anvil of Hephaestus says the empowered Elestral gets +1, and when an artifact rune is sent to the underworld, you can enchant each spirit enchanting that artifact rune from the underworld to a card on your field, which is fucking insane. It means that you are going to be able to play the cards as intended as equip spells because they will cash onto the critter they were enchanting when that card goes to the underworld, and Reforge allows you to return an artifact rune from your underworld to your hand, and spirits equal to that enchantment cost from your underworld to your spirit deck. This is crazy. Of course, it makes the artifact rune free. You just have to pay the one on the Reforge, or it's also Ambrosia. Like, you may not realize this card is Ambrosia. You just get a really expensive artifact rune. You don't have to play it again. There's tons of ways you can you could get it into the bin without playing it. You could just use this as Ambrosia. It's hard to come away from today's releases not thinking that Fire Nexus is going to be far and away the best thing in Firestorm, which would make sense, right? Firestorm. I love it. I love Fire Nexus. I love its playstyle. What do you think these cards mean for the future of Elestrals? Let me know in the comments. However, if you say shit about my boy Kindleo, I'm going to find you.